All right, leaders, welcome to another Base Hospitality Group training session. Tonight, as promised, we're going to drop a second video. Didn't even change my sweater to pretend like it was another day. It's not. Same day, we're dropping another video today about leading problem solvers and creating a philosophy or an ethos at your property that produces great problem solvers, decision makers, and thinkers. Here we go. So we are first going to look at ways that we might be inadvertently contributing to an environment where people are afraid to make decisions or they just get lazy in making decisions. So these are probably things that you don't even know are having the effect that they are if you're doing them. If you're doing them, it's a great opportunity. Like we always say, no one's in trouble. No one thinks you're not doing a good job. It's just a matter of growing as a leader, stopping one way of doing things and trying a new approach, continually growing and improving. So we're going to look at the first one is what I call hero syndrome. And this is when a manager just does everything for folks. So what do I mean by this? If someone makes a mistake, they're working in the property management software, PMS, and they make a mistake in the way that they tabulate something. Well, if a manager just says, I'll take care of it, jumps in and fixes it for them, that person, first of all, never learns how to correct that mistake. And second of all, they immediately kind of reset back into the mode that, oh, my manager's just going to take care of it for me. I'm just kind of a pawn. However, if you as a manager say, okay, so let's go in there and take a look together and get them so that they go in and get it as far as they can, and then you just give them the next step and allow them to try to take over control of fixing this problem themselves. It can be a really good way for them to learn that not only are they responsible to fix their own mistakes, which they are, you also believe they're capable to figure it out themselves. Really cool thing. Hero syndrome can take another shape, and it's essentially that someone says they don't know something, and we automatically just say, well, here's what it is, and we give them the solution. And hero syndrome sounds kind of like bad, like we're doing something wrong, but it's not at all. It's just a matter of you're willing to jump in and help people out. And that's a gift. And it's usually how you got to the place that you are, that you're willing to jump in and help. That's a great thing. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It's a great thing. However, that can also impair growth if you won't at some point force someone to be able to develop the ability to learn things for themselves. Listen, we all need to ask someone for help from time to time, or it's quicker just to say, hey, where can I find this? And somebody goes, it's right here. Boom, off you go. But if you create a culture where someone goes, hey, I don't know this, and you just always give them the answer, you spoon feed them the answer, a person just becomes dependent. And our idea isn't just to hand stuff out over and over. We want to create people who are legitimately thoughtful, intelligent, good decision-making people. Well, that means that at some point, we can't just keep spoon feeding them answers. It's like with my kids. When my kids are young, I have to give them the answers to everything because they just don't know. But as they age, I stop giving them the answers so much and I start asking them the question, well, what do you think? What would you do? Do you think you can find this thing? Without fail, somebody is going to come and ask me, I can't find my shoe. Did you look for your shoe? Yeah. Where'd you look? I don't know. Okay, so go look. I'm not going to go look for your shoe. And we call it appropriate laziness in leadership. We want you as a leader to be appropriately lazy in the way of forcing your folks to do the work and take it as far as they can themselves. And if they hit failure, that's fine. You can go help them at that point. But the idea is to force them to take it as far as they are able today before you step in and help them to the next step. So don't always be a hero. Don't always hand them the solution. Don't always fix things for them. If you're doing those things, it's a good time to just pull back a little bit and force yourself to develop some new language that we'll get to in a little bit. Another thing is sometimes we as leaders, you just tell people what to do. Hey, I don't know what to do. Just go do this, and off they go and do it. Well, in this case, that's great, stuff gets done, but sometimes we create robots. There are times that they just need to be given a task and they go do it. We have checklists for that. If someone's exhausted their checklist and they come to you and they say, hey, I need something to do, the first thing I would suggest asking them is, what did you notice today that needs to be done? We want to develop people's ability to see and process and think and analyze and then come to a conclusion on their own. If we're doing all the observation, all the analysis, and all the concluding, folks aren't developing quite the skill set that we hope for them to develop. It's not just for us at the end of the day. It's for them, and it's for you guys as managers that we want our folks developing great decision-making abilities. So sometimes it is necessary to give direction, but often it's not, and you can ask them to find tasks based on what they see. Hey, have you thought about what maintenance might need to be today? Hey, have you thought about what housekeeping might benefit from today? Oftentimes asking them questions helps them start thinking, and it gets kind of the water flowing mentally, and then, okay, off they go, and they can handle things on their own. Sometimes we're also just telling people a solution. Hey, Charlie, this team called and they want to book a block of rooms and they want to pay $89. Just book it. Okay, and they go book it. Okay, but they don't know why. Why do we book it? Why did you just take that like that? Why didn't you go for $99? Why? And if we're just telling and we're not explaining the why, people are just going to, again, turn into robots. They'll do it, they'll go get it done, but they won't develop the ability to think in the way that we think, which is obviously the way we want folks thinking as it pertains to this business. So instead of just telling them, quote them 89, tell them, ask the question. Again, we'll cover this up a little bit. What would you do? What do you think we should do? And then ask them why. And as they talk about their why, you can explain your why and how you think about it. Like, hey, why do you think we should quote them 89? And they say, well, it's March and it's dead and da-da-da. And they give you your explanation. You say, oh, great. Those are great points. And did you think about this? Sometimes college teams only have this for a budget. And sometimes I'll think about that one. And it creates an environment where now we're sharing information and ideas and knowledge so that we can collectively put together a better decision. And they now have new information with which they can use to make future decisions. Great. Another thing. It's important that you as a leader identify those who are already thinkers and problem solvers from those who tend to just want to pass the decision-making buck. If you have someone who's smart, they're a decision maker and a problem solver, and they're grilling you for how they should handle a situation, they're not looking to get out of it, okay? They're coming to you because they have taken themselves as far as they can go, and they're looking to you to help them take that next step. That's a huge compliment from them to you, first of all. Second of all, if you treat those guys the same way you treat these guys, you're going to end up frustrating them. If I have a thinker and a problem solver come to me with a situation and I just brush them off like, what would you do? Or he's already tried to do everything he could do. He's come to me now to help him understand how I think about these things so that he can then go, oh, now I'm seeing a different thing that I hadn't thought before. That helps me. Off I go. So don't treat those that are already problem solvers and decision makers the same way that we treat those that we're trying to develop into problem solvers and decision makers. Hopefully that's clear. Lastly, if we bail them out all the time instead of forcing them to deal with the consequences of their actions and their decisions, we're going to create an environment where people just don't care. We're also going to create an environment where they just pass everything off to you anyway. So it's a really good thing if somebody comes in, they made a mistake, they identified it. If it's related to a guest, tell them, great, call the guest, fix it. You overcharged them, call them, fix it. They'll probably not do that again. And while it feels like a major consequence for their actions, it is, but it's going to be a really good teaching moment for them as far as a practice teaching moment. If I have to call someone and apologize for double charging their card, I'm a lot less likely to make that same mistake again. Again, now you are helping them through simple consequence develop wisdom and better decision-making practice. If you bail them out every time someone wants to call off of their shift, hey, I'm gonna call off today and I'm just not feeling like it, and you're, oh, it's okay, I'll run in there and do it. Nope, sorry, you gotta find someone to replace you or get your buns in there because it's your responsibility. And if you can't handle this kind of responsibility, maybe you're not meant to be part of this team. Again, it's that kind of balance of being a little bit of a kind of the tough love parent versus the totally compassionate, I'll take care of everything for you. Sometimes for growth, people need to just bear the responsibility, the weight of their decisions and their position. And if that means you're scheduled for a shift and you don't feel like being there, or you better figure it out. You better find someone to be there because that's your job. And this is one of those situations where if they just flake, they should probably be written up because they know what they should do and they choose to do something else. That's when people will get into issues with us. If you tried to do your best, if you thought what you did was the right thing and it was the wrong thing, you're not going to get in trouble for that. People aren't going to get in trouble for that. But if you intentionally did what was wrong and you knew it was wrong and you went through with it anyway, that's where, the disciplinary stuff starts to happen. So those are just some really quick and easy examples of ways that we're trying to be helpful, but maybe we're actually being unhelpful for a long period, like future growth period where people become, if they can become too dependent on you as a leader and you're always there fixing it, and you'll do everything for them, you're really hurting your team and you're also hurting yourself. Because if your team isn't growing into something great, and if they're not starting to surpass you in areas of knowledge, then they depend on you all the time, and you're never going to be able to get away. And you'll create your own prison. It's a prison of dependency. And that feels really good for a little while, and then it becomes exhausting. So if you don't feel like you can get away, you might have created an environment where everybody is overly dependent on you, and now you got to start putting some of these next few steps into practice. So we're going to get into those now. So if you have inadvertently created a culture where people are afraid to make decisions, we're going to look at some things, how you can correct it. First, if a person comes to you with a situation, no matter what it is, and they want your input, the first thing to respond to them with is, what do you think? And so what would you do? What do you think? What would you do? Get them to come out with their solution. If they've thought it through that far, you're in good shape. It means that they're thinking. If they haven't thought it through, or they just go, I don't know, then you need to say, well, go think about it. And when you come up with something, come back to me and tell me what you're thinking. So the reason for this is people will just come to you and try to get you to solve all their problems. And what you can't allow to happen is we cannot allow people to become lazy thinkers, lazy in their thinking. And that happens if we just spoon feed them answers. So someone comes to you and they've got a situation and they say, hey, what should I do, John? The best response is, well, what would you do? What do you think? And get them talking. If they're right or if they're wrong, well, that's one thing or another. Or if you agree with them, I should say. That's the big thing right now that we're looking at is you got to make sure they are thinking and they're coming up with solutions on their own. Now, if they propose a solution, you're going to find that 9 times out of 10, it's the right one. And you can say, great, sounds great. And then respond by saying, it's your decision, so whatever you think. When you listen to them, they give input and you won't say, do that or don't do that. They're forced to recognize that you are comfortable with letting them make a decision. Even though you haven't said whether or not you agree with it. Yeah, it's your decision. Now they have to realize, oh my goodness, I'm allowed to make decisions. Like he knows what I'm thinking and he didn't even tell me yes or no. He just said, it's my decision. Wow, I'm a decision maker. That goes light years in helping your team develop the philosophy of decision making. Here's another thing. Ask their opinion on different matters, even if you don't need it. Ask their opinion. You might not need it, but you're going to benefit from it. So, ask their opinion because when you do that, you're complimenting them as a thinker, as someone whose thoughts and wisdom and opinion you value. When you do that, it's going to be very, very impactful on your culture. If you just call someone or, hey, I was thinking about some service things we've been doing and you're really good at developing those things. What do you think of this idea? And let them opine. If they say, I don't know about that. Okay, cool. Tell me what you think. Do you have any ideas of your own? They might unload on you with a bunch of great ideas that they've got that they haven't shared. But it's all going to come from you as a leader initiating that feeling by encouraging them, complimenting them, by asking for their opinion. Sometimes just asking for an opinion is a compliment. Next, encourage their decisions. Encourage their decisions. So when someone makes a decision, one of the best things you can do as a leader is just say, great job making that decision. I'm really proud of you. Good job. If someone's early in their development of becoming a decision maker, it's really important that early on you just encourage them with great job making that decision. That might be the time to overlook some aspects of the decision they made. If it's not a major issue, it's okay to overlook some aspects of the decision that you might not agree with, simply because the greater cause in that moment is to develop that person into a decision maker. If they're not a true decision maker yet, it might be time to overlook some of the decision until they develop the confidence that they're a decision maker. I'll share a story. A few years ago, I had to write a document for a bank for financing. And my first shot at the document was, I think, 8 pages. And I took it in to my boss, who was a tremendous writer, brilliant man, and he just shredded the whole thing. It was just red. And he's like, well, the idea you had is good, but maybe this should be about a page and a half. And I remember going back to my office just totally deflated and dejected. And it wasn't harsh, it was very gentle correction, but I just felt totally dejected because I didn't see myself yet as a writer. I didn't think I could do it. And that single document was edited 24 times before it was finally approved and sent off to our outside banks. And if I hadn't been so stubborn, I might have given up. And there's a lot more to that story that I'll share with you guys at some point if you'd like to hear it. But it was hard not to give up with the way that I got this thing back, and it was just a mess. And I didn't have the confidence that I was a writer yet at that point. Fast forward 7 years later, and I would write a document, and it'd be 9 pages long, and I'd get it back, and it would have 2 corrections, and I'd be mad because there's only 2 things in an entire document, and I was certain that I could come up with more than 2 if I edited it myself. Because at that point, I had developed the confidence that I was a writer, and now I wanted someone to find things wrong with it so I could get better. So I use that illustration to say, if someone's early on in the development of becoming a decision maker, I used that I was becoming a writer. This was if they're becoming a decision maker and they don't have confidence that they are a decision maker, maybe don't shred every decision they make. Maybe just encourage that they made a decision and overlook all the stuff that isn't perfect. As they become a more confident decision maker, you can get more into the critiquing of the decision, because by that point, they're probably going to want to become a great decision maker or a greater decision maker, and they're going to want your critiques. So part of your job as a leader is to recognize where people are in their process of becoming a decision maker and respond accordingly for each of those developmental phases. All right, another one is to, where did I go here? I'm in my notes. Okay, so this is one that's a little bit of an off issue, but it comes up with interpersonal relationship issues amongst different staff members. One of the best things you can do to show them that you're going to force them to deal with their own issues and come up with their own solutions is if a staff member comes to you, staff member A comes to you and tells you about a problem they have with staff member B. If that happens, the temptation for us as leaders is to get in there and just fix it. Just get it done with, because you don't want to deal with it. You don't want drama. We don't like drama. But the best way to handle that is by asking person A, staff member A, that came with the problem, did you talk to staff member B directly? If you didn't talk to them about this problem yet, you should not be talking to me. Go back. If they haven't, go back, talk to staff member B, and if you guys can't work it out, then come to me. The 3 of us will sit down and I'll listen while you guys work it out. I'm not going to get in and fix this for you. I'm going to force you to be adults. I'm going to force you to be mature, and I'm going to force you to be thoughtful and responsible and come to a solution yourself. And if you go talk and you can't figure it out, come back. I'll sit there and you two will work it out, and I'll just mediate. If you force them to handle things this way, you are raising the standard of maturity amongst your staff, and usually with maturity comes responsibility. And with responsibility comes the knowledge that I've got to make my own decisions. If we're always jumping in to fix the things between our staff members, they're going to remain like little kids instead of growing up into the adults that we need them to be for us to function this way. So those are a few quick items for you guys as leaders to start to put into practice. We could make this an hour-long video with 17 different things, but what I want to do, and is what's more important to us to do, is to give you a handful of things that you can put into practice today and start working on, because they're each going to take time. You're not going to put some of these things into practice and immediately change the way that you lead in this manner in a day or in a week. They take time. So I'd rather have you write down these 3 or 4 or 5 things that we've covered and be intentional about developing them over the next 6 months, so that 6 to 12 months from now, these things are your normal way of doing things. Your life is going to be healthier, you're going to be a better leader, and your team is going to be much stronger. What happens if you take this approach is you begin to develop not only great staff members and associates, but great leaders. If you are a leader that can develop leaders, you are rare on the earth, my friends. Truly. There are so few leaders that can develop leaders out there. They're more precious than gold. Develop these traits so that you can develop leaders. If you can build leaders, there's no limit to how far you can go in life. Whether that you stay with us or whether you go elsewhere, you're going to do extremely well. So my objective, our objective, is to help you guys develop these things as your normal, as a leader. And that might take some time. So rather than overload you with a bunch of cool sounding things that you can't remember and you won't be able to do, we're going to give you a small number that you can remember and you will be able to do, that as you do them day in and day out, even though you're forcing it now because you remember what you have written down in your notebook, 6 months from now, having done it every day, it's going to be normal and natural for you, because our minds change and they're transformed literally into a new way of thinking. There's science behind this where the whatever the little sparkly things are called, you're actually rewiring your brain in the way that it connects, neurotransmitters. And when we think the same way and we force thought patterns to go a certain way, we develop a current there that becomes now a new and normal way of thinking. And so our minds actually can be transformed into a better way of thinking. And that's a part of what we're doing here with these trainings, is we're saying this might not be natural for you today, but if you will practice this when it's not natural and you will be consistent over time, it will become your default setting. You will actually rewire your brain and you will think differently 6 months from now than you did 6 months ago. I could tell you 100 stories in my own life where practicing this and forcing myself to do that which was unnatural to me resulted in a new normal for me 3 to 6 months down the road. It's amazing and miraculous, and I hope you guys will join us on the journey toward that. You are in leadership because we trust you and we think very highly of you. We're asking you to take these steps and take the trainings, get them delivered out to your teams, and then use these tools that we're giving you. And we think that as this 2021 passes and years go forward, we're going to be putting together some of the best teams and the best hotels anywhere around, and you guys will be the cause of that. There's a lot to be proud of there. Hope you guys have a great night. We'll see you soon. I'll see you within the next week and a half for sure.